Hello and welcome to Curated Classics, the channel that shares the most famous and popular stories from books, films, and history in quick summaries so that you can learn the classics quickly without hours of reading or years of expensive courses. Today you are listening to Dracula by Bram Stoker is a Gothic horror novel that introduces Count Dracula, a centuries-old vampire from Transylvania. The story is told through a series of letters, journal entries, and newspaper articles, presenting multiple perspectives on the events that unfold. For a more in-depth understanding of the book, we will now provide a chapter-by-chapter breakdown. Chapter 1. Jonathan Harker, a young English solicitor, travels to Transylvania to assist Count Dracula with a real estate transaction. In his journal, Harker notes the locals' fear of Dracula and their warnings to stay away from the castle. Chapter 2. Harker arrives at Dracula's castle and meets the Count, an old man with peculiar manners. He notices strange things about the castle, such as the lack of servants and Dracula's refusal to eat with him. Chapter 3. Harker starts to feel like a prisoner in the castle. He witnesses Dracula crawling down the walls like a lizard and encounters 3 vampire women who try to seduce him before Dracula intervenes. Chapter 4. Harker learns of Dracula's plans to move to England and tries to find a way to escape. He watches the Count load boxes of earth onto a carriage and decides to explore the castle while Dracula is gone. Chapter 5. The narrative shifts to England, where Mina Murray, Harker's fiancée, exchanges letters with her friend Lucy Westenra. Lucy receives 3 marriage proposals in one day, accepting Arthur Holmwood's proposal. Mina is concerned about Harker, who hasn't written in weeks. Chapter 6. Mina receives a letter from Jonathan, stating he's ill and recovering in a convent. Meanwhile, Lucy begins sleepwalking and experiences a disturbing encounter on a hill near her home. Chapter 7. A Russian ship crashes ashore near Lucy's home, with the crew missing and the captain dead. Newspapers report that the only cargo is boxes of earth. Lucy's health deteriorates, and Dr. Seward, one of her suitors, calls on his mentor, Dr. Van Helsing, to help. Chapter 8. Van Helsing arrives and is perplexed by Lucy's condition. He performs a blood transfusion with Arthur's help. Mina travels to the convent to care for Jonathan and learns of his experiences in Dracula's castle. Chapter 9. Mina and Jonathan Harker marry, and Mina continues to worry about her friend Lucy Westenra, whose health is rapidly deteriorating despite Dr. Van Helsing's efforts. Van Helsing conducts multiple blood transfusions with Lucy's fiancé, Arthur Holmwood, and her other suitors, Dr. Seward and Quincy Morris, acting as donors. Chapter 10. Lucy dies after another vampire attack, and Van Helsing suspects that she has become undead. He convinces Arthur, Dr. Seward, and Quincy to help him investigate her tomb to confirm his suspicions and save her soul. Chapter 11. The group discovers that undead Lucy has been preying on children. They return to her tomb and witness her returning from a hunt. Van Helsing guides the men in a ritual to destroy the vampire Lucy and free her soul, making them realize the extent of the threat posed by Count Dracula. Chapter 12. The group, now including Jonathan Harker, unites to hunt down and destroy Count Dracula. Using Jonathan's journal and their knowledge of Dracula's activities in England, they deduce that the vampire has been using his real estate acquisitions to create safe havens filled with his native soil. Chapter 13. Mina Harker discovers Dracula's location and the group raids his lair. However, Dracula escapes and retaliates by attacking Mina, forcing her to drink his blood and creating a psychic bond between them. This connection allows Mina to see Dracula's thoughts and movements. Chapter 14. The group decides to pursue Dracula back to Transylvania, using Mina's psychic connection to track him. They split up to cover more ground, with some traveling by ship and others by train, in a desperate race against time to intercept Dracula before he reaches his castle. Chapter 15. Mina and Van Helsing travel together to Dracula's castle, where they encounter the 3 vampire women from earlier in the story. While Van Helsing deals with the vampire women, the rest of the group catches up with Dracula's carriage and prepares for a final confrontation. Chapter 16. The group's pursuit of Dracula culminates in a dramatic confrontation near his castle. With Mina's guidance, they intercept the gypsies transporting Dracula's coffin, which contains his weakened form. Chapter 17. A fierce battle ensues between the group and the gypsies, with Dracula's survival hanging in the balance. Quincy Morris is mortally wounded during the fight, but the group is ultimately successful in defeating the gypsies and reaching Dracula's coffin. Chapter 18. Jonathan Harker and Quincy Morris deal the final blows to Dracula, stabbing him in the heart and decapitating him. As Dracula's body crumbles to dust, his curse is lifted, and Mina is freed from the vampire's influence. Chapter 19. The surviving members of the group mourn the loss of Quincy Morris and reflect on their harrowing experiences. They acknowledge the sacrifices made to defeat Dracula and vow to remember the events that brought them together in their fight against evil. Chapter 20. The group is more determined than ever to hunt down Dracula and destroy him. They find his boxes of earth at the various locations he had acquired in England and sanctify them to prevent him from using them as resting places. Chapter 21. The group continues to strategize and gather resources for their pursuit of Dracula. Mina worries about the psychic bond she shares with the Count, fearing she may be turning into a vampire herself. Chapter 22. Dr. Seward and Van Helsing discover that Renfield, an inmate in Seward's asylum, has a connection with Dracula. They try to learn more from him, but Renfield is mysteriously killed. Chapter 23. Mina reveals that Dracula is on his way back to Transylvania. The group splits up to intercept him, with some traveling by land and others by sea. Chapter 24. Mina and Van Helsing journey to Castle Dracula, while the others continue to track the Count's movements. Van Helsing prepares Mina for a possible confrontation with Dracula's vampire brides. Chapter 25. The group's efforts finally pay off as they corner Dracula in a climactic battle. Quincy Morris is mortally wounded, but with his help, they succeed in killing Dracula, ending his reign of terror. Thanks for listening to Curated Classics. If you enjoyed this story and it provided valuable insights, we hope you will give this video a like by clicking the thumbs up, sharing it with other lifelong learners, and please check out more of the greatest stories throughout history on the Curated Classics channel. See you next time.